What's going on? Alex here, and today I wanted to do something a little different. Now, I actually wanted to talk about why I became a CPA because it's not as straightforward as you may think. Now, I never dreamt of being a CPA. It was one of the last things on my list. When I was in high school, when I was in college, I wanted to be a rock star. Okay, I wanted to play guitar in a metal band, tour the world. That was the goal. So I really wasn't interested in crunching numbers, putting together financial statements, tax returns. I didn't care about it. I didn't want to do it. It wasn't even on my radar. So when I was approaching my last year of college, where I majored in psychology, that was going to be my career choice initially. I decided that I wanted to see what else is out there because I had a gap in classes on a particular day. So looking through the list, I said, let's try an accounting class. And it wasn't even so much that it was accounting, it was so much that it fit into the schedule. It was easy and it wouldn't make me wake up too early. All right, so I put this accounting class into the schedule, said, hey, how bad can it be? And I came in on the first day, sat in the back of the class where the professor could not see me. And that was my intent, to kind of blend in, not have to put in too much work, too much effort, and hopefully I could just skate on through, get the grade, and be out of school. And then the professor walked in. He was this Italian, intense dude. He had this mustache happening with the goatee and the whole thing. And he was a pack of dynamite, let me tell you. Because as soon as he walked in, it was like Joe Pesci was in the room. And the attitude changed. The whole vibe changed. He was so intense. He came out of nowhere and he basically laid down the law. He said, okay, look, first thing you need to know is I have a real job, so I don't have to be here. And what he meant was he was a tax partner at a firm, so he had his own clients, he had his own business. Teaching wasn't his primary gig, so he wasn't too consumed by it, and he wasn't going to take anybody's BS. And he made that clear very early on, and this got my attention because I was sitting in the back of the class trying to blend in. I didn't care at all until I saw that this guy meant business, and something about that attracted me immensely. So he starts going through accounting. He starts asking kids in the class questions about what they know, what they don't know about accounting and journal entries and the basics. And finally, he picked on somebody in the middle of the class and he asked them an accounting question. And the kid said, oh, I think it's so-and-so, the answer. The professor looks at him and goes, oh, you think? You think. Let me see. Do I want to count to who thinks or do I want to count to who knows? I want to count to who knows. And I couldn't even believe what I was hearing at that point because I never seen anything like that in the classroom. I was used to subdued psychology professors coming in and just reading from the book. Meanwhile, this guy is lighting the whole room up in terms of challenging answers, pushing back on answers, making sure that you're confident in your responses, that you know what you're talking about. I never seen anything like that. So the class goes along. He's already got my attention. And the second day of class, I sit in the front, in the center, because he's intense, I'm intense. I want to know more. All right. And one of the days I walked in, the professor was looking through the quizzes that he gave the prior day. He's graded them. Now he's got our grades ready to give to us. And he goes, guys, you did really well on the quiz, which makes me think that they're too easy. And I was sitting in front of the class at this point, and I said to him, no, it's just that we're that good. And he looked right at me with all of his intensity and those crazy eyes. And he said, you got a lot of bravado, kid. Let's see how well you do on my final. And part of me was ecstatic that I was getting some attention from this professor. The other part of me was terrified because I was like, okay, well, what did I just do here? And the class continued on. And a few more classes in, there was a student that gave a response to this professor. So the professor asks, is this a debit or is it a credit? The student says, I think it's a credit. He goes, oh, you think? Okay. You're wrong. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to change your answer, and then you can tell me the real answer. And the kid thought about it for a second, said, I want to stay with my original answer. So the professor goes, okay, let's get your quiz. So he looks through the quizzes, he finds this quiz, he goes, you got an 80. I bet you 80 points you're wrong. And if anybody else helps him, you fail my class. So I can't even illustrate to you what this scene looked like, okay? We're sitting 6 feet away from this guy. Nobody can help him. And he's got to defend his answer now. And if he is not confident, then this professor is going to tear him apart. I'm telling you, there's a saying where you can cut tension with a knife. Forget it. I mean, the tension was suffocating everybody in that room on that day. I can tell you that. So this kid starts turning red because he's not that sure anymore about his answer. And the professor goes, wait a minute. Let's make this easy for you. Let me write your ridiculous wrong answer on the board so we can show everybody how silly it is. All right? So he writes the answer on the board. He goes, this is going to cost you 80 points. You're going to get a 0 on the quiz for this? Kid's turning red at this point. And he doesn't know what to do. Then finally, he says, I want to keep my answer. So the professor goes, okay. Takes his quiz, writes a big 0 on it, shows it to him, and says, it doesn't really even hurt me to do that, okay? Because I told you you're wrong, and you didn't want to listen. So do you want to change your answer? And the kid, more power to him. He stuck with it. He goes, professor, I'm sticking with my answer. And the professor looks at him and goes, you know what? You got your 80. Because in life, people are going to challenge you. Clients are going to challenge you. Bosses are going to challenge you. They're going to push back on you. And you have to know, you have to have confidence in what you're doing that you could push back on them. And when you're right, you better make sure you're right. And for me, that was life-changing because, again, I never saw anything like that up until that point. So seeing that kind of exchange and seeing how intense and into the accounting and the material that the professor was, and the fact that he was ready to go above and beyond to not only give you the knowledge, but reinforce the knowledge and then challenge your knowledge of the material. That was immense for me. And in the beginning, I didn't really get accounting so much. The debits and credits were confusing to me, and it didn't come together. I didn't understand why you increase assets with a debit, but you can't increase equity with a debit. It didn't make any sense to me. So at some point in that class, it did click. And I think everybody that learns accounting has that moment where it just clicks. It just goes, oh, I get it now. I get it. And then that foundation is built for you for life. And once you have those core concepts in place and your mind wrapped around the very basic, easy stuff, then anything else is just cake on top of it, right? It becomes a lot more efficient to gain new concepts when you're learning accounting once you get those debits and credits and mechanics out of the way. So as that class progressed, the professor and we started talking after class a little bit as far as what my goals are, what my plans are. And keep in mind, throughout this time, what I look like. I have hair down to here. I wear all black. I have a chain on my wallet. I've got boots on. I'm not your typical accounting student, all right? Definitely no dress shirts and ties for me. It was all Slayer and Metallica shirts, and that's what I was about. So for this professor to see in me, of all people, the potential to not only do well in the class, but excel in the class and in accounting in general, that was huge. And the professor ended up driving me to my car after class because we just been talking about accounting and business and going into business for yourself and all of that. And we had some tremendous conversations. And that's what built the foundation that I had going into accounting. It was that intensity, it was that drive that I saw in him, the fact that he was able to work for his own business. He didn't have a boss. He didn't need to listen to anybody else to go on about his day. He just had his firm, and that's that. That attracted me. That spoke to me. And after that, I was sitting with my dad in front of the computer at home, and he was already kind of telling me that, hey, you might want to look into the CPA thing if you're doing well in the accounting course, because you'll always have a job, And you can make good money doing accounting, doing tax returns, whatever you want to do. And that led to the thought process of my dad and I just standing at the computer one day and saying, hey, what do you need to do to be a CPA? Well, I need to pass a CPA exam. What do you need for that? I need 30 more college credits. Okay. You can either go to college for another 30 credits at College of Staten Island, where I went for my undergrad, or you can get an MBA. So we said, okay, you need an MBA. What do we need for an MBA? You need to take the GMAT. Okay, take the GMAT. So my dad and I, in one quick movement, decided the next number of years of my life, sitting in front of the computer and figuring out what we need to do to get a CPA license. It was just that simple. And from that one conversation, it's been building ever since. And going back to that course, Professor Cicero, thank you so much, because that class literally shaped the rest of my life. Because from that class being in my first semester of my last year of college, I took another accounting course in the last semester of college. I got an A on that. I got an A in the first course, got an A in the second course. Then I went for an MBA in public accounting. Finished that program, went to Rutgers for that, did an accelerated program. And then I became an intern at PricewaterhouseCoopers. And while I was at PwC, I got my CPA license, and I did most of the sections before starting work because I knew how intense it was going to be once I got to PwC, how much work was involved. And that's what formed the foundation of where I am today. And everything that I've done since then has been some offshoot of my business background, my CPA background. It always helps because it puts things into context. It helps me find explanations for things that I couldn't otherwise explain. And it changed my perception of what being an employee is all about. Because growing up, I was conditioned to understand that once you finish school, you go to work. You become an employee. And the whole entrepreneurial business mindset wasn't something that was presented front and center in my family. Because for the most part, employment is the background there. That W-2 situation, if you will, more so than an entrepreneurial, business-driven, let's start a company, let's build an empire kind of thing. And seeing that when I was looking in the accounting, as an employee, I would be in the expense category of a company, that spoke to me because I didn't put things together that way before. Call me naive, whatever. But when I saw that salaries was an expense on the income statement, and the fact that when companies want to reduce expenses, one way to do it is to lay people off, I said, I never want to be in that position. That's crazy to me. To help build somebody else's company and then be subject to cuts if they need to put layoffs in place, that didn't work for me. So in one way or another, accounting has shaped my entire life after that one class. And Professor Cicero, I got to hand it to you. Thank you so much. I mean, we still get sushi when I'm in New York, and we still communicate, and this is more than 10 years later already. So it's kind of profound, the impact that one class could have on somebody's life. And had he not walked into that class that morning, I don't know what I'd be doing right now, because I would have never discovered accounting, I don't think. Would have never got a CPA license. Probably would not have gone to business school to get my MBA. Definitely wouldn't have ended up at PwC. And there's a 99% chance that I wouldn't be here in front of you doing this today in this office in Los Angeles. So hopefully that helps shed some light on how I became a CPA. I know that I myself look at case studies as often as possible to understand people's stories and situations. So I thought, hey, what's the worst that could happen? And giving you guys a little bit of background of what led me to become a CPA and kind of my journey. So if you're considering going down the CPA path, I think the return on investment is immense because you gain an understanding of how things work in life, how businesses interact, what the whole idea of profit is, what the whole idea of working capital is, and you get to understand the world on a different level. And in every single interaction that I have, I think that the CPA background, the business background, influences my perception of life, because that's the lens through which I look at a lot of different situations. And I wouldn't give it up for anything. The other thing is, if you want to quantify it a bit more, they say that the amount you paid to go to school shouldn't be any higher than the salary that you have when you leave school. So for example, if you paid 100 grand for school, you should expect 100 grand starting salary at a minimum to ensure that the cost of that education was worth it. It's just one metric. There's a lot of metrics, okay? Don't get too crazy about it. But in my situation, it ended up working out exactly in that the MBA that I took, the program cost $60,000, and my starting salary going to PwC from my MBA program was $60,000. And I was able to pay off all the student loans with money that I got from being a CPA or doing accounting, doing tax returns and whatnot. And currently being debt-free is a beautiful thing. And that's all due to that background that all started in that one accounting course. And since then, I would definitely recommend, based on my experience, that if you're considering the CPA path, do it. If nothing else, it's a beautiful thing to have in your back pocket while you're doing something else, because you can always fall back on it. It's not something that's going to be immediately automated, I don't think. And there's plenty of that human element that is not going to be included on TurboTax, that's not going to be included on QuickBooks Online or whatever they come up with. So it is still crucial for businesses to have guidance in the area of accounting, in the area of finance. So if you have your CPA, those credentials are rock solid. They entail a lot of trust. And I have clients calling me out of the blue who I never spoke with before. As soon as they understand that I'm CPA, they immediately instill some trust in the relationship before we even get to talking to each other. So that in and of itself has tremendous value. And certainly, no matter what I'm doing, even if I'm not doing tax returns or financial planning at some point moving forward, I'm always going to rely on that knowledge that I have and that perspective that accounting gave me and the CPA license gave me to rely on. So that's kind of my take on it. Hopefully this is helpful for someone thinking about taking the CPA track, or if you're studying for the CPA exam and it's driving you nuts and you came upon this video while you're procrastinating, that's fine too. The love is still there. And ultimately, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I always read the comments and love doing it. And there's going to be more content coming soon here from the new office in Westwood, Los Angeles. So with that said, hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching.